My name is Conkbayir, and I'm the organiser of the conference Applying Neuroscience to Early Intervention, which takes place on Saturday, the 28th of March 2020, which I'm very, very excited about. Also chuffed to bits that I've got Jackie Wilson here with me for the next few minutes to tell us all about the fantastic work she does at Empower Education. Jackie, it's over to you.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to be part of this, Minnie. It's just an extraordinary opportunity to share some of the wonderful stuff that I do. I'm so passionate about early intervention, and I've become very passionate about neuroscience. The work that I do, for me, young people, the next generation, really need to have this self-development, real deep understanding in themselves. So that they can know how to navigate life more easily. And with neuroscience becoming more kind of known now, although it's not known as much as I'd like it to be, there are real scientific reasons for self-developing and looking at ways we can become more resilient, we can become more self-aware, to create a better life for ourselves. So the work that I do is self-education, and that is working with kind of a formula, if you like, to help the next generation. I feel this should be in the curriculum, to be more self-aware, to know how to navigate the mind, to know how to become resilient, to know how to build up those pathways in the brain, to be able to manage our thoughts, our emotions, to be able to, witness. That's why the self-awareness comes first, become the observer of our mind, to really know who we are, to be able to grow our self-worth, because for so many people, their self-worth limits them. They have a real kind of value on achievement is what gives me worth in life, rather than who I am makes me worthy.
Do you think schools are doing enough to develop those attributes in our children at the moment?
No. And I think that comes from a lack of education for the educators in the importance of it. They try, but what I see in schools is you've got educators who are insecure in themselves, are worried they're not going to do a good enough job. So their self-worth isn't always that good anyway, because they haven't realized who they are is important, not
constantly
what they're able to do.
For those academic outcomes as well, aren't they? So anything that isn't measurable immediately or quantifiable is not of any use, it seems.
Absolutely.
To me.
Yeah, and then once you've gone through that process and really worked on yourself, you can then look at being able to help others. So this is where my social awareness gets tagged on, so that people understand how to be more empathic, more compassionate to others, because they are able to do that for themselves. It's really difficult to be able to do that for others if you can't kind of be self-compassionate, if you can't really be aware of what's going on for you first.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about self-regulation for good and for bad reasons at the moment, what with its proposed introduction as part of the ELGs next year. And one of my deep concerns is that we are expecting now practitioners to support self-regulation without any mention of co-regulation. So linked to what you're saying,
yes.
There, how can we expect our adults to take care of very young children when their needs aren't being met either? So here you are with this massive new concept all of a sudden, and they've whittled it down into, tick box, skills that, well, they must be able to go to the toilet and listen to the teacher. No, it's a huge complex concept that you're not educating our workforce in. And I'm very concerned that they will then be setting up the workforce for failure and ultimately our children.
Yeah, definitely. Which is why with the work that I do, I then kind of branched off slightly to create the Emotions Toolkit. This is one of my packs, because it's back to front. It's really a resource that is meant for children, because it helps them to understand in the moment, talking about mindfulness, in the moment ways to manage the onset of an emotional state. So when they are starting to feel a little bit worried or a little bit frustrated and irritated, that in the moment strategy that starts to calm down the lower kind of regions of the brain and use the higher region of the brain to start to develop those pathways that self-control. But these tools are either yoga, mindfulness, or scientifically proven techniques, adult techniques, that work on a neuroscientific level. And I have had this checked out with a neuroscientist just to make sure that it was good, because I'm not a trained neuroscientist, but I do really get the importance of how we can work with our brain, how we can develop and grow our brain to work for us. So these tools go in at age 3. Age 3, these can go in really early. The earlier they get these tools, the more they can become more able to use those tools. But not only they are for the children, when we do staff training, it's about the teachers having a self-management plan. It's about parents, because we have a family resource, we have the teacher training, so that families can do it at home, and so can educators. So whether that's in a day nursery, early years setting, or whether that's in a junior school, they've got that understanding.
Sorry, what have parents fed back as being the most effective for them and their children at home?
Well, it's the fact that you're, like you said, co-regulated. So it's about, if your child's got a self-management plan, and so have you, you've then got the kind of support network of, okay, I'm going to do this with you. So if a child's chosen, for example, the heart breathing technique, which is a heart math technique, their parent will know that. So when they're starting to kind of go up the emotional scale, the parent can say, right, let's do heart breathing together. Let's do what you've chosen, because the child chooses what they like, what they're drawn to. There's a range of tools, but it's what they feel drawn to. And so the parent is modeling, mirroring. So, you know, these mirror neurons, the child might not be able to do it 10 times, 20 times. The parent is giving that modeling, and that's what's effective. But you've also got the ability of the child to say to the parent, remember to breathe, mum. Remember to do your
yeah. Which is what my daughter sometimes says to me, what about the breathing on there? Which means, mum, I'm like, okay, let's do it together. And then it does, because while you're talking, that reminds me, when we're putting ourselves in those shoes and we're saying to our child, look, come on, let's do that breathing, actually you're regulating yourself as well. And I think that's so important.
Yes.
So many of us get exasperated in those minutes, seconds, and it's like, whoa, how do I bring myself back down now before we then enter, you know, this co-dysregulation, which is the worst thing for the child and for you, because it sets the way for the future. Well, this is how we manage, you know, arguments or you know, frustration in our family, and then it doesn't have to be that way, but it could so easily slip into that and become the norm.
Of course.
And it takes
because we've never been taught. For me, you know, parents who don't have self-control, educators, you know, I see it in primary, secondary schools, teachers shouting, they don't have that knowledge of self-regulation because we've never had it in education. It's never been taught, not taught in teacher training. In January, I'm going to pilot a teacher training. So I'm going into a university to pilot this so that the teacher trainees can then go into education knowing how to regulate themselves and their students, so they can pass it on. It's a sharing. Let's pass it on to teacher trainees so it can ripple down, and let's pass it on to head teachers and ripple it down, nursery managers, whoever it might be. We've got to get this education because we never had it. So how can we teach children to do that if we've not got the education ourselves?
This is my concern about those self-reg ELGs, but that's a whole other issue. Tell me what you'll be talking about at my conference next March. What can practitioners go away with having listened to you?
Sure. So for me, it's about sharing some of the tools. It's about linking how you can really simply teach children neuroscience from around about a 5 or 6 year old. And you probably know this, I know you're a big fan of Dan Siegel, but his hand-brain model, you can teach it to young kids. Absolutely.
We use it in my house always, but more often than not, like I said, my child reminds me of the need to use it. So that's a bit of self-training I need to do there. But it is so effective.
Totally.
It's for all of us. No one is exempt from that. I think we can all benefit from that.
Yeah. So I think it's, for me, it's how to teach children. But experientially taking it in ourselves first. That's what I will be talking about. I'll be showing really simple ways to teach children neuroscience through fun characters, and giving them some tools to go and try. You know, let's go and take some of these tools, try them out, see how it feels. We'll do it experientially in the session, so that they can get a feel for how that affects them personally.
So Monday morning they'll be all set, ready to go with your tools in their armoury. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Jackie.
You're
I know
welcome.
it took us a while to get there, but I'm glad we did it in the end. Have a great day. Thank you.